Well, doing the night shift. Roll the intro and I'll explain that. Hi, welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Langers and I am the very rough looking scruffy trader. And why am I looking rough? Well, I haven't really slept a great deal in the last 3 days because I stupidly decided I would trade the Asian session. And for me, the Asian session is through the middle of the night. And it's kind of 3 days in now. And I decided that I would do it really just to see if it can be done as a day trader. And I'll be honest, I found it incredibly difficult. And the results so far are, well, let's just say not the best. And I don't mean it's completely bad. I just find it very hard going because the volume and liquidity isn't really there. And what I mean by that is all the markets are pretty flat. I knew that anyway, but living in the UK, it's not really a session I've ever had to trade. I really haven't, you know, because who on earth wants to be getting up? It's sort of close to midnight to do some trades if you don't have to. I mean, here we are. It's what time is it? There it is. There you go. It is 11:30 at night, and I'm just sitting down now to have a look through the charts and see if there is anything that I can potentially trade. And the way I do that, I'll just flick my screens on for now, is I just monitor a basket of products that I'm kind of interested in. But what I found is the currencies are pretty flat. They really are. Commodities are reasonable, like oil and gas and things like that. And indices wise, there is really only the Nikkei. But even that has its moments because you're literally stuck with one instrument, and if you're waiting for a certain setup, you can wait hours. Now I waited God knows how long last night. I called it a day at around 4 o'clock in the morning, which is why I'm looking a bit rough now, because when you sort of throw your body clock out of whack, trying to get to sleep and back to sleep is very difficult. And that's kind of what's happening tonight, because I haven't really, like I say at the beginning of this, slept a great deal. And I've just done the fatal thing where I shut my eyes for what I thought was 5 minutes and nodded off into almost a deep sleep, and now I'm paying for it. So, as we all know, Scruffy likes a coffee. That's exactly what he's going to be going to do right now. But first, let's have a quick look at this. So, is there anything jumping out for me? Well, not a lot at the minute, to be honest. The pairs that seem to flourish through the night are the Asian Pacific pairs. So it's anything with sort of JPY in it, the Aussie or the Kiwi. And the one that's kind of caught my eye to a degree is the pound yen. Now, I sat on that pretty much all last night. I put it on and it took it till 5:30 today to become profitable. I'll show you. That's kind of the ticket over the last few days, and as you can see, it's not brilliant. In fact, it was a real hard slog just to get that. a number of positions I actually just killed off. You know, I was sitting waiting on them for hours and hours and hours, and it was proper hard work. Anyway, so what's the scores on the doors over the last couple of days? Well, it is this. Put a couple of rules together. Start 11 o'clock looking at the markets. I kind of wanted to frame the trades, if you like, because this is pretty uncharted for me. I set myself no more than £5 per trade. Now I can break that up if I so. So I could have, say, 5 £1 positions. And the only time that would increase is if something had already been paid off to cover a new position. I.e., if I started with 5 £1, if I paid off 1 or 2 of those orders, I would re-enter. Simple as that. And no more than 3 trades running at a time. So in theory, I should only have an initial burst of £15, and then I can use extra money to build that up. I hope that kind of makes sense. When I say £15, I mean that'll be my maximum position size at any one time as an initial starting point. Okay, if I pay some off, I may use what I've paid off to offset on another market. All right. So sometimes you might see a market that has 7 or 8 different positions running, but that's because I've already taken some money out of that market and I'm just using that money to open up new positions. Okay. ATR needs to be a minimum of 4 times the spread on the hourly. Initially I was going to look at the 4-hour, but I find doing the Asian session that's a bit long, so I do it on the hourly. So if my spread is 2, I must have an ATR of 8 or more before I even consider looking at it. And the ATR has to be an average of what the Asian session is. So I'll dial it back a little bit. And I'm looking for a movement of a minimum of 5 pips. Otherwise, I'm not just going to enter. Because that's the other thing. I've noticed that the markets are incredibly challenging for movements. So whereas initially I would look for 10 pips during the day, which is a reasonable target. Through the night, I've half that to 5 because the volumes are half. I hope that all kind of makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toddle off and make myself a coffee. I'm going to have a flash through the market, see what's potentially there, and if there is, I'll pop a few trades on and see what we can come out of it. But at the moment, it's been pretty rough. We have well, as you can see, we have an average win of £16 a position. Great. Average of just under 4 pips per position. Amazing. And I have a hit rate of 62%. And it's been tough, as you can see. I mean, even there, they got cleared out. Now, that sometimes looks worse than what it actually is, because it's based on all of the individual positions on this sheet. It's just a quick ready reckoner. But as long as I am maintaining more than 60%, I'm quite happy. As long as it's green, I am quite happy. And at the minute, we are sitting on £339 clean profit. So it hasn't been the greatest in the world, but I've still pulled a wage. Okay. So let me go off and make a coffee and I'll come back to you. Okay, boys and girls, kind of had a look through. Not a great deal, in fairness. Not to get excited about. The only one that's really looking okay is the Nikkei. Seems to be the only thing that kind of moves nighttime. What's caught my eye? Well, it's this. Come back, pushed up, and it looks like it's topping out around here. So it's in a bit of a range. So I want to see that push up onto there, and hopefully it'll reverse and I can grab, I don't know, maybe 10-15 pips. And if we can do that, I can live with that. It seems to be the only market that does move sort of after midnight with any grace, shall we say. The downside of it is it's how do I put this? It just takes time to get itself moving. I mean, I watched this yesterday, and there was the initial burst, and then it just sat there, you know, just didn't do anything, and it was really, really hard work, as was the Australian 200. This one, as you can see, it just kind of grinds along, and it makes it quite hard work. But there's a caveat to that, because I'm saying it's hard work, and I kind of had a light bulb moment last night, because I was literally sitting twiddling my thumbs all night. There was nothing to show anybody. It was just literally me watching a YouTube video and being bored out of my skull. But the light bulb moment was, if I'm looking for swing trades and I've got this much time on my hand, then it became a different kettle of fish, because the markets that I'm predominantly looking at are the markets that I look at for swing. I know that sounds a bit odd, but when I break up my market, and you've seen me do sort of window of the world and things like that, I also have them broke up into pound, euro, USD, commodities, fuels, ETFs, etc. And the reason why I do that is so that I can see a correlation against the currencies. In other words, I've got all the pounds together. I can see if they're all going in the same direction, but I do know some shift better than others. I also have a little bit of a watch list, shall we call it. And that watch list, initially, when you see the window and you see sort of the 8 products, they're the ones that I know move pretty much within a day. The rest of them are swing trades, and I'm just waiting for my criteria to arise. That seems to be what I'm doing here quite a lot, and you can spend the time sort of fine-tuning what you're doing. In other words, looking for a nice trend and see if you can get on the end of it, or continue with it.
Isn't that logical?
Okay guys, looks like we've got a bit of a contender for tonight, shall we say. And that contender is the Nikkei, yet again. Why is that? Well, there's a lovely flag formation, if you've ever seen one, and an overextended candle. So what I'm going to do is, it's 20 past 12. I'm going to watch this for a little while, and then I'm going to see if I can catch some form of a retracement on it. It's bursting the levels, as you can see here. How far has it got to go? Because we're in uncharted territory, shall we say, That's what the broken lines are. Basically, it's never been that high, so I've had to use some extensions to work out logical levels, shall we say. And it's just cracked straight through it. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of work, a little bit of math, and see if we can find out where it's kind of going to stop. So what I'll do, I'll just leave the camera running. I'll come back to you in the end. I'm only looking for, like I say, about 10 ticks, 15 ticks. If I can get that at £5 a throw, I'd be quite happy. And then the rest of the time, I think I would just look for swings. And that's kind of the light bulb moment I've had when looking at the Asian session. I think you have a good opportunity to look for swing trades. Just the market's that little bit calmer, and you can take your time and have a good look. Whereas when you're doing a day trade and you've got your 15-minute candles on, etc., the market's quite buoyant. So I suppose the observations are very simple. If you are looking to do longer term, then the nighttime sessions are more peaceful and you've got plenty of time to peruse what's going on. If you're wanting quick gains and you're looking for your very, very quick movements, then you definitely want the London session. So that's kind of the takeaways. I mean, I know it's the basics and everybody knows that anyway, and I've known that for a very long time. But if you're trying to scalp this session, in other words, you get 2 or 3 ticks at a time, and you want to do it over and over, I don't think it's happening. There's not enough movement, not even to sort of grab 3 or 4 ticks on a regular basis to make it worthwhile, because it just doesn't spike around, it doesn't rotate. You see, when you're in a trade during the London session, if you get it wrong, you can manage your way out of it based on the retracements, etc. Doesn't really happen in this session. It's not volatile enough, so you have to be pretty much on it from the moment that you press go, and if you're not, you're going to sit through a bit of pain until the London session comes round, and then you can use the volatility to get yourself out of it. Do I like trading this over the last couple of days? No, not really. The only good part is the house is quite quiet. Kind of enjoy the coffee. That's a bad thing as well, because funny enough, I like talking to Wink during the day, and our house is full of laughter. But in the middle of the night, she's in the land of Nod, dreaming of Chris Helmsworth probably. She is a little pervert like that. She does like that fella. She likes Liam Nielsen as well, and Streatham, and Chris Pine. And she has the gall to say that I have a pop because I like Wonder Woman and Princess Leia. It's a funny world we live in, isn't it? Seems to be one rule for one and none for people like me. But I'm big and old, thick-skinned, very thick-skinned before somebody shouts. So what? So what? Sorry, late night rambles while I'm watching the snow come down, and boy is it coming down. Going to be an enjoyable journey going into the office tomorrow if I decide to go. I think I might just stay at home. Anyway, what am I looking at while I'm rambling on? Well, it's come directly to this level and it's stalling. Kind of got half an hour to go to the end of this candle. I may flick it down onto a half-hour candle just to see what's going on, but I'm still waiting 6 minutes before this closes off. And I do implore you to wait for candles to close, whether it's an hourly, half hour or whatever. And why would I drop this to a half hour? Just because the market's moved that little bit slower. Just means I'm not sort of waiting inevitably forever for something to happen. But I want to gauge the trade from a higher point of view. And I wouldn't really look less than half an hour. So that's what I'll do. I'll keep an eye on it on a 30-minute. And as soon as I see the signs of what I want, I'll look to enter on a lower time frame. Okay, so I'll leave the camera running while I have my coffee and watch a couple of YouTube videos to amuse myself in the wee hours of the morning, and speak to some of the guys on the Scruffy Squad who are awake this time of night. And that's the pinging you hear in the background. Most of them are in bed now, but there is one or two kicking around. Okay, Martin, go to bed. Stop being naughty. He knows what I mean. He keeps sending us rude pictures. So let's see who's awake this time of night. Yoxy24. Good evening to you. What have we got today? Hey up. He's sending in some jokes. Result. Happy days. Alright, so I've got something to amuse myself. So let's see the trade play out and then I'll come back to you. Make it stop. Well guys, this night shift lark's not doing me any good. So I finished it a little after 4 o'clock in the morning. It did okay in the end, but it was hard work. Why is I'm saying it's hard work? Well, the markets are incredibly slow and they just grind along. However, I still ended in the positive, just so you can see. There you go. I did have to average in to get out of the Nikkei trade that I was in, as you can see. However, it paid off, and I'll start going through that with on Friday when I do the final summary, just sort of the good and bad and what I've learned from this little exercise. Mainly what I'm learning at the moment is I don't particularly like it. No way! But I have plenty of coffee. It may be because I am incredibly tired when I'm going into it. You see, I'm kind of trying to get a little bit of sleep during the day, but it's not really working. So I'm starting at 11 midnight and then kind of working right through. Like I say, I got to bed this morning at about 4:30 by the time I'd calm myself down, switch computers off and everything. But I was back up doing the morning watch for the Scruffy guys on the Telegram. And I like to try and get them in by 9, so I had a couple of hours kip, and here we are. So what are we looking at tonight for the final run? Well, I had a bit of an epiphany, and that epiphany is the markets don't spike that much during the night. So they are basically micro trending within the session. What do I mean by that? Normally when you're trend trading, you're looking for the bigger journey all the time. However, on the Asian session, what I've kind of figured out is they don't ripsaw around. You see, if you're trying to get in and out of cable during the London-New York session, there's a rotation. You'll see it move up, it'll get to a certain level, and then it'll retrace through the next session. Buyers and sellers, because it's very active. However, on the Asian session, it just seems to go in a single direction and stay that way pretty much till almost the end of the session. There isn't sort of a rotation in the middle. And that may be what's been catching me out a little bit. So my epiphany is, and I had a little look at this, is to frame down a trend strategy that I would use for swing trading. So instead of looking at it on 4-hour charts, scale it down to maybe a 30-minute chart, and then just see if I can find a harmonized entry, you know, one that's quite gentle, and then see if I can ride the trend a little bit, but with the understanding it's only going to be a limited amount of pips and only for the session. So basically using a trend trading idea or a swing trading idea, but as a day trading target. I hope that kind of makes sense. But that's what I'm kind of going to be looking at tonight. So I'm just going to wind it up now. This one is just kind of a summary of where we're up to in the week. Monday was okay. Tuesday, Wednesday, well, Tuesday was a washout. I sat twiddling my thumbs all night for nothing. Had to sit on sort of the pound JPY, and it just stayed there, and I eventually got out, well, you can see, for 51 quid. Lovely. Waited all night for that, and then last night there was a little bit of movement, a little bit of action, which is what you've just seen on the Nikkei, because it's the only one that shifts. But the Nikkei or the Japan 225 on most of the brokers, it's a bit of a wild animal. It's kind of the Asian version of the DAX and the Dow. When it moves, it bloody moves. So when you're looking at your stops, take them off a daily ATR as I did, because if I hadn't, this would have just cut me to ribbons. It really would have done. However, it set itself up. I saw there was going to be a heavy retracement. It had to. It had been excessive in a single direction, and paid off. If it didn't, it would have probably skinned me to quite a lot of money. Nature of what we do, and it's just the way that I trade. So there we go, guys. I'm gonna have a little bit of a rest, because like I say, I've just got up to do this, and then I'm going to try and catch some Zeds, and hopefully do it all again tonight. So as always, guys, do what you love, and the money will follow. See you all in the next one.